After the latest episode, being episode 7 of Rings of Power Season 2 just dropped, I can probably confirm that The Rings of Power is possibly the most fickle TV show I've ever watched. Fickle? Is that the right word? Volatile? Is that better? No, I'm really not sure about that one either. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that with Rings of Power, each episode is such a coin flip as to whether it's good or absolutely shit. And I can say with full confidence that episode 7 of The Rings of Power Season 2 is on the good side of things. There were a few hiccups, some quite controversial moments which we'll get into definitely, some really cool ones, some really stupid ones, and some really, really fun ones. But overall, episode 7, it was pretty good. It was an entire 1 hour and 10 minutes of fighting, of course, being the Siege of Eregion. Siege, Sack, Battle of Eregion, whatever you want to call it. That's what we almost exclusively saw with this episode, with a couple trips to Durin in the middle of it. And usually with these Rings of Power episode reviews, we talk about each individual plotline or storyline rather one by one, discussing what was good and what was bad about each. But since this episode really was just one big battle with lots of different storylines coming together, we're just gonna go in head first and just see where we get. So the first thing I want to talk about is Celebrimbor and Sauron. Now this relationship that these two have has it's really taken a beating this episode, to say the least. Celebrimbor finally manages to see past the deceit and cunning of Sauron, discovering who he really is. But yeah, so Sauron and Celebrimbor, their relationship that was it was confusing. It seemed that Celebrimbor, even though he did still believe that Sauron was an emissary of the Valar, didn't fully trust Anatar, and it's clear now that we knew that Celebrimbor, at least in some corner of his amazing brain, didn't fully trust, what we would call Anatar, but of course he didn't trust Sauron. And this is something that I do like, because a mind so smart and intelligent as Celebrimbor, being one of the smartest minds the elven kind has ever known, you'd kind of expect that he would know that Sauron is Sauron. You'd think that he would be able to see past Anatar's disguise. But the way that they have done it is really interesting by saying that Celebrimbor, he knew in some part of him that Sauron was Sauron, but his ambition and his greed, well, not necessarily greed, but his ambition to become better, to become one of the best craftsmen out there, is what let him continue going and just completely put the Sauron bit to another part of his mind, which yeah is really well done. I think that it's definitely very reflective of Celebrimbor's character in the lore as well. It definitely does track with that, because in the lore we of course know that he was a very ambitious person. He wanted to be one of the greatest craftsmen out there, and it does work. I really do like Celebrimbor's character, and Charles Edwards is brilliant in this episode. Speaking of Sauron, though, again, great, like absolutely brilliant, and I just think that Anatar as a villain is really interesting. Not just scary, but very very interesting as well because of his intelligence. Like you don't see much of Sauron, do you, in the Lord of the Rings? It's really just not a thing that we get to see. He's in the prologue for a bit, and then for the rest of the thing in the movies, he's just one gigantic eye. Overall, one of his best abilities is getting people to do exactly what he wants them to do. Because remember, he doesn't have the One Ring right now, and the One Ring, as we know in the Lord of the Rings, gave him a lot, and I mean a lot of power. Sure, he's a Maiar already; he does have loads of power in excess, really. But this cunning of his, this way to deceive people, is his best tool, and he uses it really well. On, like I said, one of the greatest minds in Celebrimbor. So yeah, their relationship in this episode, whilst it does take a beating, is brilliant, and consistently throughout the show. I've said it, I think, in every single episode. I have loved Celebrimbor and Anatar, their chemistry, their dynamic. Every single time we go to them, that is quite usually a highlight of the episode. And yeah, it is really good. And I don't think we can go further without mentioning the blonde elf, who apparently looked like Galadriel and revealed just how much of a thing Sauron does have for blonde elves. She died, so sad. We have a rather controversial moment to talk about, and that is with Elrond and Galadriel. Now, this, some people definitely overreacted to it, like absolutely lost their minds when they saw it. But we see basically Galadriel being captured by Adar. Of course, that happened a couple of episodes ago. And Elrond, when they're marching into battle, sees that Galadriel is captured and decides that, well, we can't go into battle because I don't want Galadriel to die. So he has a talk with Adar, but then at the end of it decides that he is not going to give over his ring of power. He will just unfortunately have to let Galadriel die. And the last thing that we see between them, or supposedly the last thing that will happen between them, is we see Elrond go up to Galadriel and kiss her. And yeah, that would have definitely enraged quite a few people, seeing as Elrond actually ended up marrying Galadriel's daughter. So does it make much sense? I mean, definitely not. Is Celeborn alive? Yes, probably. Would he approve? I don't think so. Would Galadriel even want it? I don't think so. Although it did seem like Elrond did do it of his own accord, I don't think Galadriel really wanted to. It was still a bit confusing. Like, I really just don't think that they should have done it. But I am glad to say they did redeem themselves afterwards, where it turned out that Elrond, it might have just been for this, but it could have also because he genuinely does like Galadriel. He got as close to her as possible and handed her a pin, which he was able to use to, of course, escape her shackles. It it's interesting, and it was controversial. Like, people did not like it, I don't think. But let's move that past that now and go to another part of this episode that I really, really do like, and that's the battle scenes. The battle scenes, honestly, really, really good. Just really overall, really impressive, and yeah, it's fun. And one thing that I absolutely loved, is this one shot over here. We'll just play it. It's this one shot of all the elves that are remaining, and there are barely any of them, barely any. 30 maximum. I really can't count. There's around, 30 of them, and they're all beaten up, shook after the battle. The most prominent fighters there are Gilgalad and Elrond, obviously, and Elrond is really badly shaken up. And you've got these thousands of orcs coming at them with Adar at the front. And of course, I think that one thing that we can all agree on is that it did definitely have some feeling towards it, or it did call back a bit, maybe not intentionally, to Captain America in Avengers Endgame. This is an analogy I made in another video, but this was really, really reminiscent of it, and it did definitely remind me when Captain America, on his own, might I remind you, goes up fully beaten to face thousands, probably even millions of Chitauri, and face down Thanos himself with a broken shield and probably completely broken morale. How he does that was, of course, huge bravery. We all looked up to that, and I think the Rings of Power also did that pretty well. So, props to that. Very well done. Arondir died. This was a bit of an interesting one because I have absolutely hated Arondir's character since day one. I just so boring, so monotone. The whole Black Elf thing, you can get over that. But oh god, he is such a boring character. I don't think I've ever seen him on screen once and actually genuinely enjoyed it. But his death scene to Adar, definitely it made me feel a bit of a pang. I don't want to admit that I felt sorry, that sad that he died, because I've just hated him this entire time. But you know what? Now that he's gone, I don't think I'll ever think about it again. I don't think I'll lose any sleep over Arondir dying. It is what it is. We move past it. But yeah, like I was saying, not much else really happened this episode. But overall, then, I really did enjoy Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 7. It was really strong in pretty much all aspects. Sure, there might have been a couple of questionable things, like Galadriel and Elrond kissing, but you know what? We get past it. Because Celebrimbor and Anatar absolutely loved it. Adar going to attack Eregion, the whole sack of Eregion battle, which of course will continue in the next episode, was pretty strong as well. I did enjoy it. And it felt like we're really keyed up nicely now for the last episode, being episode 8, which will come out next week, with, of course, Elrond being captured by Adar. And then you've also got Galadriel, who is free, and I'm guessing she's going to do some amazing things. And I'm guessing that Galadriel will just do her usual girl bossing thing, but it is what it is. And Sauron, I am really, really interested to see where they take it in episode 8. So yeah, lots to look forward to in the last episode of Rings of Power Season 2 coming out next week. Make sure to stay tuned for that. I will definitely be making a review of that as soon as possible. And also, make sure to give this video a like. And also, please subscribe. We're a growing channel. One little subscribe, one little press would be hugely helpful for the channel. So please do that if you haven't already. And also, on the end screen, make sure to click the Rings of Power card, because then you'll be able to watch every single review of Rings of Power so far. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Darth Sauron.